It all comes down to this, right? The space prep, selecting the beds, building the beds, filling the beds, adding irrigation, and now it's time to plant and watch my new kitchen garden grow. My goal for this space is to fully use this kitchen garden for fresh food eating throughout the season, spring, summer, and fall. And as I proved last year, I can grow year-round by using protective measures. My hope is that a year from now, I can truly call this my 4-season kitchen garden. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a look at what I planted and when, and what I still have to plant when the danger of frost has passed. We're getting really close to that. But the cool season crops have already gone in, so let's check them out. In this round bed, I started out with carrots. Because I planted carrots in another part of my garden with varieties that I've had dependable success with in the past, in this bed, I thought it would be fun to try some new varieties. In the outer ring here, I have planted 2 different varieties. On this side is Shin Kuroda, which is supposed to be really good for heat tolerance. And in this side of the bed, I have Tendersweet, a variety that is known for its flavor. In the very center ring, I planted a variety called Littlefinger because we do love baby carrots, and because it has a shorter days to maturity, this will allow me to get it harvested before I need this center space for summer crops. In the center then, I plan on planting bell peppers. Emerald Giant and Intruder did really well for me last year among all the different varieties I tried last year, so those are the 3 that are gonna go in here. And then hopefully I'll be able to harvest at least the center ring of the Littlefinger carrots and have a little bit of extra room to add a few sweet potatoes here in the middle. My goal for that is for the sweet potatoes to grow and overflow this area while the bell peppers are growing high during the summer. In this small Birdie's raised bed configured to a 3x4, you can see that this is my Brassica bed. I planted several different varieties of broccoli. Green Magic is my tried and true, but I'm also trying 2 more compact varieties so that I can hopefully fit more in this space. Gemini is one and Jacaranda is another that boasts purple florets. I think this will be so much fun. On the corners here are my very favorite variety of cabbage. This is a compact plant with a dense head. It's called Pharaoh. I'm hoping I left enough room, but so far so good. Interspersed among the broccoli and the cabbage are short day onions, specifically yellow grainax that I bought in the fall from Dixondale Farms, and then I grew in a grow bag over the winter before transplanting them. For onions to make big bulbs, they don't like competition, so I'm not overly optimistic about how large they will get in this small of space, but I thought I'd try it. I'm growing these onions in lots of different places since it was my first time to try growing onions in the fall. I'll be doing a video soon about that so that you can see the different testing that I'm doing with the onions. It's actually pretty fun. So this is what I've got going in this small bed. I think I planted most of these plants about the end of February, so they're about 4 to 5 weeks past the transplant. They've been able to make it through several freezes, even uncovered down to 26, and last night we actually got down to 29 and they're still doing great. Since these crops will hopefully harvest in April or May, my goal is to replace especially the broccoli with okra for a summer planting. In bed number 3, this is my potato bed. As you can see, some of these potatoes are just starting to sprout, not all of them, but last night when we got down to 29 degrees, I did cover it just in case. Even though potatoes can take cool weather, and if they get a freeze, they will eventually grow back. I really didn't want to set them back, especially as young as they are, so covering definitely helped. Last year, I planted potatoes in every other square of the Garden in Minutes system, but this year I'm giving intensive planting a little bit more of a real test. Because potatoes are generally planted between 10 and 12 inches apart anyway, I'm hoping I'll still get a good harvest. I planted several different varieties from Wood Prairie Family Farm to test them out side by side. Yukon Gold is a tried and true variety. We love those for mashed potatoes. And I've really enjoyed Red Cloud in the past. It has so many uses in the kitchen. Huckleberry Gold is one of the tastiest potato varieties I've ever grown, but because it's a mid-season variety, I've had a hard time getting a great harvest before the heat shuts it down. I'm hoping that with the warm spring that we've had, and this is the first time I've tried Huckleberry Gold in these raised beds, I'll get a good harvest. Crossing my fingers. Finally, I'll be testing 2 new varieties to me. One is called Purple Viking. It has rave reviews from Wood Prairie, and there's also Adirondack Blue, and that's just for fun. I've never grown a blue potato, and as a mid-season variety, I'm not quite sure what to expect with my southern climate, but I'm up to trying it. Potatoes in my climate harvest in June or July, depending on the season, so I'm planning on putting bush beans in this bed after they harvest, but I just looked at my pantry and I have a ton of beans still canned, so I may change that mid-season. We'll see. These 2 larger beds, these are the medium Birdies beds in the 4x5 configuration, will be similar to one another. They are going to be primarily where my slicing tomatoes are going to go. I'll plant 2 plants in each bed. It was hard to narrow down which varieties I would grow, but I have settled on 3, maybe 4. I'll share more about which ones I chose and why in a future video. Alongside the tomatoes, I'll be planting different peppers and eggplant. For the eggplant, this will only be my 2nd year growing it. I grew it one season, but our family didn't end up eating it all that much. But last fall, I went on a mission trip to Brooklyn, New York, and ate some amazing baba ganoush, so I would love to try to cook that for myself. For the peppers, the priority will be jalapenos, which are a jalapeno without the heat. We find that we use these quite a lot, and I candied them last year and ate them all season in a variety of dishes. One of the more weird ones is that I enjoyed them on hard-boiled eggs alongside a Yemeni spice I was also introduced to in New York. Sounds odd, but I actually love it. I'm also going to include a sweet pickle pepper that we like to throw on the grill, and another grill-worthy pepper called I could never pronounce that. Ajvarski. And I'll also be planting banana peppers because my son told me he likes those. So he's editing this video, so you're on the hook now. You have to eat the banana peppers because they're already growing in the greenhouse. I'm also going to be trying shishito for the first time to see if they're worth the hype. Any recipe ideas? I've heard so much about this pepper and I've never grown it before. Now, all this talk about tomatoes and peppers, and I forgot to mention that there's actually some crops growing in here. This is a cool season crop that I've already planted. Can you guess? It's celery. I've found that keeping celery shaded during the heat makes it last longer, so that's why I already planted it here, but the goal is for the tomatoes and the peppers to grow up and shade the celery to hopefully make it last longer. Now, an interesting thing is that I didn't label my plantings very well, and I also started parsley from seed. I'm thinking these 2 might be parsley, but I'm not entirely sure. Parsley and celery look really similar when they're young, so I guess we'll just have to see when they get older. But even if I have parsley there, no harm, no foul. I like parsley too, but I know I at least have celery here, and then all of that is celery as well. Finally, in bed number 6, once these straw bales get conditioned, I'll be planting squash and zucchini that I'm starting indoors. Actually, they're in my greenhouse, and hopefully that will give them a little bit of a head start before the dreaded squash vine borer starts making its appearance, usually in late June. That's usually why I start squash seeds indoors, is just to be able to get a harvest before the squash vine borer arrives. That obviously is climate dependent, but that's what I've found works out well. And then I harvest everything that I can, let the plant die, and then plant more throughout the season. That's how I deal with it. It's a lazy man's way, but to me it's easier than fighting the dreaded critter. Ugh. It's gross. But as of right now, I plan on squash and zucchini to be in this space till about the end of June, and at the beginning of July, I'm not quite sure yet what I'll plant here. Again, I thought about bush beans, but now I'm not quite so sure, so I'll just have to make that decision. May end up just putting a bunch of pretty flowers here. Any suggestions? It is amazing what all you can fit into a small space. In the future, when I have all of these beds already filled early in the season, I will have utilized them much more for greens and such. As far as the fall garden goes, I will revisit how I want that to look in July as I start planting fall and winter crops for this space. Oh, and I almost forgot. Part of my goal with this kitchen garden is I want it to boast beauty as well as function. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that design is not my thing, but I do plan on incorporating beautiful pollinator-friendly flowers throughout the seasons in these beds, like nasturtium, alyssum, calendula, marigolds, zinnias, sunflowers, and more. I hope you'll follow along as we go through the season and you can watch this kitchen garden grow.